Hello and welcome to another episode of Powerhouse Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Stephana Johnson, and I have a special guest today with me, Katrina Cobb. She is a former architect, and she has started, grown, and sold businesses as she moved from the architecture world into becoming an entrepreneur. She grew a service-based business, built that into 2 locations, ended up selling that so that she could go live abroad and travel the world. She has most recently been in Latin America with the laptop lifestyle and enjoying that as a business consultant and coaching to service-based entrepreneurs. Her specialty is helping business owners leverage systems. She's a master when it comes to that. She's definitely proved that with her own businesses and now with many clients who are singing her praises. I'm so grateful that she's here on the podcast with us. With the current events, she just flew in from Latin America. She's now in the United States with us. So I want to welcome Katrina Cobb. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Stephana. I appreciate the introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get right to it. I've got some of the standard questions that I love asking my guests, but we may venture off just a little bit, knowing the circumstances, what we have currently going on. A lot is happening with transition. There's a lot of change. Mm-hmm. You are really good at that. So we'll get into that as we go forward. But the first thing I want to start off with, what is your mantra that you use? And it may be different now than it was, say, a month or 2 ago, but give us an idea of what you use as a mantra to keep you focused and that helps you.
I think mantra is a tough thing, and there's not necessarily a phrase, but one quote that is really good at defining the way I've always operated is, it's hard to figure out who they attribute it to because I've seen 3 different people, but it's that I dream of things that never were and ask why not. So it's about problem solving, about questioning the existence and not just going with status quo and finding new opportunities, new ways of doing things, of innovating, of changing how things are done. And I think that's always been a piece. To ask the question why not, or even better, to ask the question what if, is sort of one of my default modes. I think that's historically been an amazing thing. It's definitely still applicable right now in light of things that are happening, but I think one that may be even more appropriate for those that are like dealing with changes foisted upon them and having to make new decisions they never thought they would have to make is, I don't know where I got this one from, but it's something that's been in my mind a lot in the last couple of years, is there are no real problems, only decisions to be made. And I think for a business owner, that is a very grounding statement to come back to. It doesn't mean they're going to be easy, but every problem has solutions. It just may be tough to have to make that decision right now. And I think that's the space a lot of people are in.
Yeah, that's excellent. What a great call. Absolutely. So I want to unpack that a little bit because decisions are key in how you can actually go through that. Do you have, along with that, some insight that you could share on how to go about making the right decision or the right decision right now?
Yes, and it's going to be super nuanced. So I would say first, growing up, military, growing up with my background, moving all the time, changing careers, starting up a lot of businesses, like I am not adverse to change. And so I probably respond in a bit more measured way than many people who don't have that experience to lean on. So I would say first and foremost, getting out of your own head is really, really, really useful when you're faced with new challenging situations that you've never had to think through before. So finding somebody.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say finding somebody, coach, mentor, advisor, somebody with either adaptability or resilience or innovation as kind of their core gift is a beautiful person to be able to talk some things through with right now if we're in a strange situation that is just unprecedented in business. So that's one lens. The other, I think, is really just more of a coaching tool of it's very normal that we're going to be reacting from a place of fear, of scarcity, of panic, of all the kind of emotional charge around how quickly things are changing. But a great helpful way for any decision making is to future cast yourself beyond whatever the current crisis is and ask your future self, what decision would I be proud to have made? Would I be able to stand by? Would I feel really good about making if I was looking back in hindsight right now? Because it still needs to align to the vision and where you eventually would like things to go. And I think that's a helpful reframe if you've done enough self-work and personal development to be able to like put yourself in the future and separate from the emotions of the moment and feel them, experience them, acknowledge them, but get to a place where you can still make a rational decision based on all the factors, on all the knowledge you have in the moment, right?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Exactly. I'm curious as far as how you are juggling things on a day-to-day basis, right? I mean, you have a different lifestyle. Definitely, you like that style, and as you said, you're used to the change, and so that is definitely gives you that ability to naturally shift into that, which is awesome. And you probably have a day-to-day like plan of action that helps keep you focused. So a lot of folks just waking up in the morning, their whole day is chaos because they don't know what to do. Would you have some insights that you could share specifically on a day plan, like a life in the day of here's what I would say, these are the top 5 things that should be looked at first. Maybe at night you go to bed and this is what should be on your calendar for the next day as a priority. Any insight there?
Yeah, I think high level, what I would say is because everybody listening to this is going to be some sort of leader, some sort of owner, some sort of CEO, some sort of person that already has reached a level of success in their life. So take whatever you used to do and whatever version of that you can carry over is going to give you the most stability, the most calm, the most grounding. So I'm sure people had a morning routine. I'm sure people had an evening routine. There are versions of that. Again, why can't you go back to the why not question? Why can't you create some of that in your current reality, right? Are there many other factors right now? If you're home, if you've got family and kids and these things, sure. Is there disruption even in my world? 100%. Like, am I making new shifts in the way I would have done things? Yes. But pull pieces of that into your current day, I think is a great place to start. And for grounding purposes, I'm a big believer in creating those rituals that put you in the right frame of mind. So whether that's journaling, hypnosis, meditation, something in terms of a mindset, or just listening to something positive that's not the news right now is a great place to start your day. I think if you have to readjust how much time you have for work and business, or you just need shorter intervals, you need to work it around other things in your home situation, great. Be proactive and like, if time blocking was a thing before, time blocking can be a thing now, right? So there are skills, there are habits, there are practices. They may look different, but they don't have to be completely neglected. And I think the more continuity you can give yourself, the better. It's still important to have a schedule. It's still important to organize your time, probably more important now because we've got some different distractions. I think it's still important to guard and safeguard your mental state of mind, if not more so now than ever, with healthy habits on that note. And finding resources. There's so many amazing resources. If you haven't had these things, now it's a great time to test out what works for you. If you have, let's see which versions you can play with now. And the only other piece I would add is I think it is okay to give ourselves a little bit of grace to adjust to this. Regardless of my situation's really not that bad, everybody has it worse, yada, yada. You're still a human having a human experience in a very weird, uncertain, unpredicted time. And if you need a day to unplug, take a day to unplug. And I think that's also super important as a leader to recognize and be introspective of yourself and your own personal needs right now. And give yourself that if needed.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. Good advice. So do you have a book that is your thing, like your top recommendation?
I think a beautiful one in leadership in general that I discovered a couple years back and really got a lot out of it and have returned to a few times is Straight Line Leadership. It's by Dusan Dukic, and it's these beautiful, short, to the point, don't mince words way of leading yourself and leading others. And just some clear distinctions as to how to show up like 100% as a leader, how to not dance around issues, how to make better decisions, how to set better boundaries, like all the things leadership encompasses, but in these beautiful little bite-sized, succinct, this is exactly how it is. You can own it or you cannot, but that's leadership sort of perspective. And that's always the one that I've come back to because I think it's a beautiful, simple way of giving you a lens to look at really how you operate in many different areas.
Yeah, excellent. I agree. Fabulous. Thank you for that. Some of the things as far as crucial turning points, we have one right now, clearly. But if looking back on your life, were there or is there one particular turning point that was like a catalyst for how you started doing things differently?
I think there's probably been a series, right? I think we're the sum of all our experiences, but I would say one that has proved to be very formative for me was actually a business failure. And that would be as we mentioned earlier, I did expand a service-based business to 2 locations. We grew super, super fast after I had invested in some coaching and really got to learn the business end of running a service business. But we grew so fast that I still didn't know which questions to ask, which metrics to look at, which numbers to be tracking, what the red flags were going to be, that in hindsight, 100%, I understand completely. But I ended up investing a lot of my personal money to do that second location on pure blind ambition, optimism, ignorance, a beautiful mix of all these things. I had a coach at the time, but we didn't have like a really deep relationship based on that particular coaching arrangement. He didn't ask me any of the questions that, knowing what I know now, I would have asked. I didn't know what to ask him. It was like I was literally just doing what I wanted to do and telling him about it afterwards, which is not really the best way to go about actually leveraging having a coach. And it was a year and a half. It was really painful. It was probably the first time I've experienced something that I judged as a major failure, right? I ended up having to close a second location down. And it was for many, many reasons. Some of them were personnel and hiring systems. Some of them were internal operations systems. Some of them were leadership problems. Some of them were not understanding all the business financials and some of the other aspects of what had made the first place so successful and how do we translate and duplicate and scale that, right? And then there was the personal ego side of it. Like, this one didn't work. What do I do with that? How do I process that? You know, can I step back and look and learn the lessons from this 100%? But I also had to deal with the emotional issues of like, that's not how I wanted things to go. And I don't know what that means about me as a business owner now that I've had this failure, right? And then I had the financial 6 figures of debt that I rolled into my name after having to close that down, which added a lot of stress. So huge learning moment for me. And I think your question was, what was the turning point in how I operate now? It's 100% the reason that systems, metrics, taking a look at all the pieces of a business when you want to scale is so, so, so important to me because I've done it wrong. I've done it right. I've also done it very wrong. And now I know the difference and what to look for. And if I can help anybody else avoid some of those hiccups and hurdles, super happy to do so, because it is, in hindsight, it would have been very simple for me to stretch it out a little bit, slow my roll, and put the systems in place and have a very different outcome, right?
Yeah, so. You know, I am really appreciating you right now for, one, being incredibly vulnerable to share that, right? And you did it in such a graceful way but there was that piece of just expressing the journey that you had and just saying like it is. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. It's not easy, especially during these times, but I think that's something we can all appreciate as far as learning from our quote unquote failures, because it is not a failure. If you learned that much, that's priceless, right? You can't pay for that.
Well, that's the joke.
You can't.
I can make that joke now. It was super painful, even for the year and a half, 2 years after that. Just like taking that on as an identity as an owner, right? And like that was my baby, and I let it fail. But like the joke I have with my accountant, who sees all the financials, is like, you essentially just paid for your MBA. I mean, that's the debt you're looking at right now. So there's that. I'm like, well, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess that's a positive spin.
well, there you go. And it reminds me of how Knight from Nike, you know, when I finished reading his book last year, I had no idea what they did
Right.
before. How many
Right.
bankruptcies, how many, on the verge, on the verge,
Yes.
on the verge, on the verge, and here they are. So oftentimes we miss because we're only seeing it from this
We don't tell
picture
the
and we
stories.
don't
Yeah.
see the whole thing. So I appreciate that. That's huge for us. And I think that that's also a glimpse of what we should be taking away from this whole thing that we're seeing right now with this is where we are and this
Right.
is everything right here. It's like,
Right.
whoa, wait a minute. 2008, I
There's a
can
lot
remember
more to it.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more, and
Yeah.
we're going to have more in the future, and it's how we're going to come from this. So, you said something that was important, and I think that I want to pull this one out a little further, and that is leveraging a coach. You're a coach. I am a coach. I do my training and consulting. So we do similar things. We have different types of clientele, but I brought you on specifically because you are the systems woman. And you know that stuff and definitely have the unique experience that you bring. And working with people in the service industry, service providers, there is a lot of, there's the tone of things, the touchy-feely tone of like, yeah. And then there's the bottom line. So balancing
Business is
that,
business. Yeah.
business is business. And I know that you've got this piece now. So tell me what you would say someone should do in looking for a coach and a relationship with the coach. This isn't about selling. This is really, I think people should understand. Listening to you, that's very similar. I've invested in multi six figures for coaching.
Right.
Same thing.
Right.
I didn't leverage those coaches. And then I'm complaining about it because, crash and burn numerous times. And
Right.
it's their fault or, it's not. It's, of course, ultimately personal responsibility. So let's unpack that.
Right.
Let's talk about leveraging a coach. How do you? What's the best way to go about doing that? And finding the right coach? And let's go there.
Okay, perfect. I think the beautiful thing is there are many, many, many coaches now. This is an industry that's been growing, and some of them specialize in certain areas. Others are more generalist. I think there are different coaches for different stages. To your point, I've invested in coaches since that initial point 7+ years ago. I've had a coach continuously, and I've had a series of coaches, and some of those relationships I took better advantage of. Some of them I didn't. Some of them I got out what I needed, but not what I thought I wanted at the time, which is another conversation. And I have a better lens now from those experiences to know what I'm going to need in the future based on how I operate, where I get the most value, where I think my biggest blind spots are, because I think that's an important piece. So in looking for a coach, it's got to be a relationship where you're open to communicate, right? And it's got to work both ways. So I always believe a chance to engage with their content, with them personally on a call, with how they're showing up and how they're communicating is a really helpful sneak peek as to what that relationship might look like. I think while I have always valued one-on-one coaching, you can still gain knowledge and wisdom from things like masterminds, from things like some of the group programs, depending on how well they're executed. That's a different conversation, but I think you have to know yourself. Are you the kind of person that wants like full, complete focus, eyes right here, like holding accountable, like going into the hard, like challenging questions, being challenged? And are you open to that and ready to receive that? Because that's also, again, it's a partnership. You got to meet them halfway. You not only have to be willing to ask some questions, but you have to let people challenge your line of thinking. And that's a hard place for a lot of strong type A leaders who are used to just knowing what they're doing and doing things their way. You have to be ready to grow as a person. And the way through that is usually uncomfortable. So I think what I valued the most, and the coaches that I've had the best experience with, are the ones that got my vision, got like what I wanted to do, like could hold space that it was possible and totally doable, and like remind me of that in the days when I wasn't really sure that was going to happen. That had some technical knowledge, but even more so, were so tuned in to the way I was showing up, to the words I was using, to thought patterns, habits, and beliefs, and like things that I just couldn't see, which for me, that's an example of a blind spot. That's more of like intuitive or personal coaching more so than business. But I think people that can get and see where you've got the gaps are the most valuable, right? So do you want somebody that's exactly like you? Nah. Do you want a yes man? No. Might you want somebody that has the business you hope to grow into? Probably. Do I think it's necessarily I did this and it worked, so you should do this too world? I don't believe in that, because I do believe in innovation and customizing solutions. And that, again, the why not question, like, well, why can't I go my way? I think that's an important question, but that's also a core belief. And so I think finding people that align with your values and beliefs is also really important, not just personally, but like as a business. What do you believe should be important in business? What do you believe should be important in a team? What do you believe should be important in how you operate and how you prioritize decisions? That needs to be aligned, because if you start working with somebody who has a very different belief system, very different experience, very different whatever, and their method of coaching is more systematic, more it's always the thing, that may not be the right fit for you if you believe really, really heavily in customizable solutions, or you don't want to build the funnel, or you don't want to only do Facebook organic, or you don't want to only do like a tactical piece. I think you want to be very aware of how they're going to coach, what they're going to do, what they value, and how much communication you need. I think that's a big one.
Yeah, great. Very, very good. What do you think? Let's assume you have a crystal ball.
Sure.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
Two parts. Let's go to the first part of this, and that is, what do you think? We'll look at entrepreneurs, leaders that are entrepreneurs. They have a small business. What do you think they should be doing right now?
Right now, yeah. First things first, looking at your financial projections for the next 90 days, because our businesses run on money. And this is one of the first places I dug in with most of my clients is, are we in like, this hurts, but only a little? Are we in, we just lost a limb? Or are we in holy moly panic mode? Like which mode are we in, assuming this thing goes 90 days plus out of any kind of closures, any kind of slowdowns, any kind of slower decision-making, any impact to your current clients or project load, or your projected client or project loads, right? Somebody I was looking at had a financial recommendation to look at trimming your operating expenses by 15%, 30%, and then 50 to 60, and seeing like, what does that look like? And I think that's a really fair lens to start. I personally, you know, this brings me to conversations, but I personally always want to look at the data first and separate the emotions. Like, let's look at some actual numbers so we can make rational, like objective evaluations of what you're looking at, right? If you have staff, any creative ways you can to take care of your people would be step one. You and your people, take care of you and your people. Step two, look at your clients. Anything you can do to help support them, or fill a new need, or double down or over deliver, or whatever you have to do to make sure they're in a good spot. And then we look at, again, prospects, future business. What does that look like in the short term? So that's kind of the framework. Like, find a way to look at the numbers, and then you and your people, your clients, and then like beyond as community, and further beyond, like, what can you do? But in that order, because the only way, as a collective, the best way to get through this is to take care of yourself first, so you have enough where then you can be generous, where you can give back, where you can do more things. If you're still managing your own success, then you have income. You can keep spending. You can keep the economic wheel rolling, and that sort of deal. That's the best thing you can do right now as a business. And then that's going to be a hard decision. It's not a problem. It's a hard decision we might have to make in some areas right now.
Yeah. So you said a few things. So definitely cash flow, knowing those numbers, knowing your metrics, and your team, bolstering the team, maybe connecting and working a little bit more as a partnership to see how can we innovate in this time to help the delivery, and that's delivery within the own organization as well. That's definitely really, really good tips. So before I let you go, is there anything else that you can see as far as that crystal ball thing? I mean, you have the ability, from my experience with you, to step back. And because you are naturally an innovator, to step back and use that idea of the crystal ball, where what if? So we can go down that doom of what if, But there's
Right.
also a lot of, on the other end of this, opportunity. So on the other end of that, what are opportunities that small business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders in small businesses should be looking at?
Yeah, well, I think what's fascinating and also really hopeful for me is seeing the first signs of private enterprise already leaning into innovation, right? Dyson making a brand new, more efficient ventilator in 10 days just by reapplying themselves to a new problem, right? I think I've even had conversations with some of our clients that have had to move in-person services to 100% online. The opportunity is if they build the systems now to deliver in the online space, when they open their doors again, they can keep the online, and then that's revenue on top of what they were doing. It's just an early push into a new vertical, right? So we're going to see new lines of service. We're going to see new streamlined ways of operating that are going to save you money once you are back and running normal. Because if you can cut your operating expenses 15+% right now, and then the thing, we turn a corner and we go back to operating, you can keep that lower expenses and go back to growth, and your profit margins are going to be bigger. So I think we're going to be forced, just because of this, to find ways to run a smarter business, find ways to automate, find ways to streamline, find ways to run more efficiently, find ways to discover on a deeper level, what do our clients really need? How do I really best serve and solve some different problems right now? Because that's the opportunity for service providers, is looking beyond what, little box you've been and putting yourself in terms of service and finding these new needs to fill, which some of these new needs aren't going to go away. It's going to be a light bulb moment of, I can do bigger things and I can solve bigger problems with my existing expertise. So
Right.
For me, yeah, there's always opportunities, right? Challenge and opportunity, two sides of the same coin. You just got to flip it over.
Yep.
That's the lens we have to get to.
Awesome. So you've shared some really awesome insight. I'm so grateful for your time. I'm going to wrap us up. And before we go, would you be willing to share how people can get a hold of you?
Sure. So the best two places to find me, I am on LinkedIn pretty much every day. So you can find me, Katrina Cobb, on LinkedIn, and that should be very easy. You get the glasses, the picture, the whole 9 yards. And other than that, katrinacobb.com is my website. I'm not putting a ton of energy into it right this minute, but all my contact information is there. You can find me on social through that. You can read some of my blog posts, get to some video trainings and some other resources there.
Fantastic. Are you currently taking clients?
I am. I work predominantly one-on-one, but I do have space for some short-term strategic intensives to make some of these shifts. If you're in I love what you said about innovation, I don't know how to do that. Awesome. We can talk. And long-term, I've got 2 spots open for some ongoing support to navigate ongoing challenges in the coming months. So there's a little bit of room at the moment. If people are like, this is the perfect time, I need to do what I can do to put myself in the best position to be successful. And for many, that may be external perspective, external support right now.
Very good. Thank you so much, Katrina. I so appreciate
Absolutely.
your time. Glad you're safe wherever you are at this moment, and and we'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephana.
Absolutely. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to Powerhouse Leaders Podcast. Until next time, peace and blessings.